Hello, everyone. Welcome into the biggest 12. Clint Foster is your host of this show. Clint is on vacation, so I'm stepping in, and as most of you know, I won't come empty-handed. I brought you Tony. I brought you Shane. We're going to have a great show for you guys. We don't have a clue what we're going to talk about, but I do know one thing we're going to talk about. Screw you, Texas. Texas get headed to the SEC. They just lost in the listen, there's one team in the Big 12 that has a win in the playoff, and it's TCU. And so, all we've heard for the last year is TCU didn't deserve to be there. TCU got their ass blown out by Georgia. TCU shouldn't have been there. But TCU beat Michigan last year. What Texas do, guys? Should they have been in the playoffs? I mean, that's my question.
No.
I mean, I think so. That was a great game we saw.
It was.
I saw two great. Well, Washington's defense is a little suspect, but they were kind of a bend don't break all year, and they just kind of made it happen. I mean, I'll tell you the thing that Washington in some way reminds me a little bit of TCU in that if you look at all the Washington games, they just things just happen. They would get, I don't want to say lucky because they're a great team, but the best thing is to be a great team with luck. And Washington had the luck where they escaped against Arizona State. They escaped against Oregon twice. USC didn't tackle anyone, or they would have beaten UW. So you have all these times where they just found a way to win, and they did it again last night.
Yeah, I think it was the same way with Texas in the Big 12. It's not like they blew everybody out they played. They struggled some in Big 12. They came close to getting beat a few times. But here's what I would have liked. I would have loved for Texas to be in the national championship for one reason. It would have been more money for the Big 12, right?
It's not.
But no, not really.
No, actually it isn't. So at least so was described today in a couple articles I read. I mean, I haven't looked at the contracts, but according to supposedly each conference gets they said a $6 million bonus for making the playoff, but there's not more for winning it.
Okay.
So once Texas made it, the Big 12 was good.
Well, great then. Thank you for the $6 million, Texas.
Sign that check.
Right, Shane?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I've been on Washington's bandwagon all year on my other channel. I would pick 10 games that just stick out to me that I think would be entertaining, and it might be, one week it was a 2-6 Army playing Air Force. Well, 2-6 Army beat Air Force that week. I had 2-6 teams. Yeah, and then Arkansas was a 2-6 team and won that week. Well, Washington, week in, week out, I had them on there in one of the top 3 games because I just enjoyed the hell out of watching them play. Their defense was just good enough, okay, and they ran the table. I thought they would maybe get one loss and still make the college playoff. They're unscathed, and here we go. Going back to last Friday's show, I was talking with Mark, and I'd love to see Michigan and Washington play, and that's exactly what we have. So we'll see what happens.
I think it's going to be a great matchup. I've only watched Washington a couple of times this year, and I didn't watch a whole game. I would watch maybe a quarter or something, So I didn't get to see Penix at work. I mean, that guy is a hell of a quarterback. I mean, my gosh. I mean, he's amazing. He's really, really good. And, I think Michigan's going to have some trouble with Washington. I really do. I just looking at that matchup, I really believe it's going to be a really good game.
I am a little worried about. It looks like Dylan Johnson was injured. He's a great running back and a really important part of their offense. So yeah, I mean, we don't know. Maybe he'll be fine. We don't know what was wrong with him, or at least I haven't heard as of today. But that's one thing to keep an eye out for. But the thing about Washington, they just they're one of those teams again, like TCU last year. They just find a way to win, and that works until it doesn't. So, can it work one more week? For their sake, I hope so.
I've been down on Michigan all year long, and I think if there's any Michigan fans in here, they'll call me out on it because I predicted they would lose to Ohio State. I predicted they'd lose to Penn State. I predicted they wouldn't make the Big Ten championship game. I was wrong on Michigan all the way around, and I have been all year long because I was staying at the whole year. And so I was wrong about Michigan. Now, do I think that Michigan can beat Washington? Yeah, I think it's going to be a good game. I think this is a coin flip game, if you ask me. So I'm looking forward to watching this. I'm sorry, Shane. I didn't mean to.
No, Michigan's mistakes stood out to me more than what they did well. Now, as far as being strong mentally, I forget that kid number 1 who had that penalty where he blocked a guy in the back during a big play when Michigan was trying to catch up. I think it was in the third quarter. But it just seemed like Michigan just couldn't get out of their own way. And then finally they got everything going in the fourth quarter and managed to play a solid quarter. But Texas, they let off the gas. It was a great game, and Michigan all year, I haven't seen them. I don't know. I just don't have that feeling with Michigan. It's not that I don't like Michigan. Just, like I say on our show, I'm a fan. I look at it from a fan's perspective, not as much as X's and O's, as more as what I see with my eyeballs and how I feel about the flow of a game. And a lot of games are kind of start and stop for Michigan, where Washington has been pretty even keeled. Now they've had some close games, but I don't know. That's just the way I feel about it. I'd love to see Washington run the table, of course, and win it all. But I'm not a Washington fan. I was every show I say this. I crapped on the Pac-12 for years. Said it was garbage. This year it was the most entertaining conference.
There were times it was. I mean, but one of the things that conference has tended to do over the years is when they have a great team, at some point, that great team goes into a bad Stanford and loses. They go into Wazoo on a Thursday night and lose. USC twice with teams that should have won the national championship. USC would have run Florida off the field. And yet went into Oregon State on a Friday night or whatever in the rain and lost. And so the conference did that. Now, the thing about Washington is they had that game. That game was Arizona State. They absolutely should have lost. Did they even score a touchdown? I don't know. Sergeant Pickles is in the chat.
Let me look
at a touchdown in that game, maybe one. But they found a way to win it. They got over that Pac-12 self-cannibalization curse, and they found a way to win. And that was where you started to say, okay, this team, they just, they find a way to win. And as long as they can keep that going, all bets are off.
Yeah, it was a pick six is what saved them.
That's right. That's what it was. It was the pick six.
Pick
six. Exactly. Again, and that was an that Arizona State team lost to Colorado, like the worst team, one of the worst teams in the country. And they lost at home to Arizona, or they beat Arizona State at home. So, I mean, they find a way to win. And when you're a team that can do that, you're sort of like this team of destiny that works, and you hope the pixie dust doesn't run out.
I want to say hi to everyone in the chat and those watching, because I noticed we've got a lot more watching than that are chatting. So we appreciate everybody being here. If you are here with us, we are streaming on the Voice of College Football main channel, and we're streaming on the Big 12 channel as well. We encourage everyone to go over and subscribe to the Big 12 channel. I will post a link in the chat. Be sure you subscribe to the Big 12 channel and support all of the Mark Rogers Voice of College Football channels. But Will and Dee's here, our resident Notre Dame fan. Notre Dame had a nice win. Way to go,
nice
Will.
Win, Irish.
Timothy Green's here, our resident Mountaineer fan. Hey, welcome, Timmy. Nice to be here. Of course, Jackson Johnson's always with us, too. What's up, Big 12 Nation? Moose, one of our Michigan guys. Go Blue.
I like the rose, by the way, in the profile picture.
Yeah. Bean is with us. Is Washington similar to 2019 LSU? So, I'm sorry, it's LSU. But yeah, also Hamasero's in here with us. Sergeant Pickles, and boy, my mouth is not working. Sergeant Pickles here with us. Talcus Pitt. Talcus Pitt's in here with us. He said Pitt hasn't played since 1960, and I hope we never play them. Yeah, y'all never beat Michigan, have you? At all, Pitt? I don't believe you have. But anyway, appreciate everybody being here. We thank you all for being here, and those watching that aren't chatting, we really appreciate you guys as well.
Hey, I'm not a Pitt fan, but I'm a fan of Talcus Pitt's little P with the with their mascot
Panther
behind it.
in
That's
it? I
pretty
like
slick. Yeah, the Panther back there.
He's the only Pitt fan I can tolerate. And I mean,
see, my dad's from the South Hills, so like, there's a lot of good Pitt fans.
Yeah.
They're just not all on. They're just not the Twitter ones.
He called me.
Actually, Nick Brenner's as great a Pitt fan as they come.
Yeah, Falcons Pitt gave me a call yesterday, and we talked for about an hour about Pitt football, West Virginia football, just hanging out and looking forward to next year's backyard brawl. He's the only Pitt fan that's got any sense to realize that, hey, West Virginia is probably a little bit better program right now than Pitt. So we probably should just, not that most programs are probably pretty much equal right now, but West Virginia has been the best probably for the last 30 years. And then before that was Pitt.
Yeah. And I take that to.
I just want to point out to our Big 12 fans here. I had said since Joey, July, when those ridiculous people picked you guys to finish last in the conference, I said this team is better than that. Like, I thought this would be a decent West Virginia team, and they've got the Mayo Bowl trophy. Like,
yeah,
Tony, you're a better man than me because they're picked 14th. I was thinking maybe 8th, 10th.
I thought they'd be around like the middle of the conference. I mean, part of it was I looked at the new team and I knew the new teams would not do well.
Yeah.
And everyone else was all like, "Oh, they're going to finish well." I was like, "No, they're not. They're not going to finish well at all." Because new teams don't do that.
You and I did a whole show about that and talked about them. Them guys were not going to be coming into a Power 5 and dominating like they thought.
I thought UCF had a chance because just the fact that they're in Florida, they're huge. They have a huge.
If there was a trophy for Twitter whining, they would be in the Final Four.
But no, I think UCF to beat Mountaineers and Houston to lose. Yeah. Hey, I want to ask you, Tony and Joey. I mean, I'm chomping at the bit here. Arizona, how excited are you for this Arizona team after they stomped the mud hole in Oklahoma?
So, okay, Joey remembers this. When Jed Fish won like one game, I was one of the only people saying Jed Fish is a good coach. He's turning this team around because I listened to a lot of people talk about the things he was doing to build the program. And I thought, this is a guy who's building a program. I said this like 2 or 3 years ago. And Joey probably remembers, and everyone was like, "Oh, Arizona, they're terrible." I said, they need to build because they were so bad. And lo and behold, he did it. I mean, Jed Fish is awesome. Because the thing about Arizona is this is a school that has every recipe you could ask for success. It's the flagship school of a state with a ton of talent. They have crazy fans. It's a fun place to be. Like, you want to go to Arizona.
Yeah.
It's a great school. It's a great place to be. And so, and also, like, football's better when Arizona is great. Because the other thing, and you guys are going to find this now, when you go to the desert, it's kind of like when other teams talk about going to Mountaineer Field. Like, bad things happen in the desert. Do you know when the last time Washington won in Tempe was? I'm thrilled they're good. They're good in basketball. They just laid an egg against Stanford that was pretty funny. But it's great for the Big 12 to have Arizona back, Arizona State rebuilding, Colorado's back, and Utah doing really well. Because what I think that's going to do for the Big 12 is right now, I mean, it's, you guys, TCU, Texas Tech, OK State, K-State's doing pretty well. So you're jazzing up to try to help. You can't replace Texas and Oklahoma from the conference standpoint, but I think getting those 4 teams is going to help the conference a lot in terms of like staying relevant, attracting interest, and it's going to offset some of the watering down that I think happened with some of the new teams until they can build up. Because let's be honest, like West Virginia, Arizona, I forget who's all in your schedule. Like West Virginia, Arizona, Colorado, Utah, those are some great games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, I want to ask you guys this. It goes back to like, the old saying, 2 5s don't equal 10 when it comes to the girls. Well, it's the same thing. But, you brought in with Arizona, if you say Oklahoma and Texas are the 10s. Okay, I think they're an 8-5, or if you put makeup on them, a 9.
A lot of makeup.
And Texas probably has like a tub of makeup and a putty knife. They look like they will work at the Sephora or Clinique counter or something. So listen, they left, but we're getting in 7s and 8s. 7s, at least 7.5, and we're getting more 7s, and we, so as a whole, I think it's good. It's like, do you want a Rolex or do you want like 5 really nice Tag Heuers or Breitlings? You know what I mean? Like, I would rather have, the little different flair. I'd like to go to Arizona. I want to go out to Utah. This is fantastic. It's great for the conference.
It's really good for the conference, I think. Like, because it's going to add new excitement, new teams, new energy. And the other thing is there are 4 really good schools. And just like West Virginia, they're Arizona State, Arizona State's an AAU school. It's a great school. But you're talking about 3 state flagships in Arizona State who might as well be. So they're very much schools like West Virginia that like are, the core school of the state. Big wild fans. I mean, just like going into Mountaineer Field, going into Salt Lake City, jeepers creepers. That play, not only is it at elevation, but the crowd is crazy. It's a wild place to play. It's just like when teams go to Mountaineer Field and throw up their hands because terrible things happen. That's what happens when you go to Utah. So having that stuff in the conference, I think, will be fun. It'll surprise people. They're good teams. You just saw what Arizona did. I mean, we've seen. Look what Utah did with, everybody's like whining about Florida State, like, oh, we lost some players. Utah's been like that the whole year. They still won games.
I like sort of pickles here. He says, I can't wait to see which Big 12 school the curse of the desert transfer to UW. Yeah, I mean.
Unfortunately, Sergeant Pickles is going to learn Iowa does the same thing in the Big Ten.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is you watch out for Iowa?
Yeah.
I grew up in Michigan. My dad played for Michigan State, so like my Michigan State friends are always like, "Oh, bad things happen at Kinnick Stadium." Saturday night at Iowa and Purdue. Those are the 2 places where like, just like the desert or Mountaineer Field or Lubbock, where like. Just crazy things happen that shouldn't, but they do, and that's what makes the sport great.
Yeah, and then the SEC has Arkansas and South Carolina are like kryptonite to some schools.
Exactly.
like Miami Dolphins were for the Patriots all those years. Like every school has their team, and Iowa State seems to be like in the Big 12 that team that can beat anybody. I mean, they played every team close this year, and then of course they didn't play well against Memphis. But so Arizona's losses, every loss was like only 1 score, so they could have very easily been playing for the Pac-12 championship.
Was it double overtime or triple overtime against USC in the Coliseum?
Mississippi State was overtime. Let me see here.
USC was overtime. Or double overtime.
Washington beat them 31-24. USC beat them in overtime. So there's 2 overtime losses.
Yeah,
come on.
They just had this wild great team, and again, I think Jed Fish is built. That's not like a team that's built on like one great player that just happened to get you there. Like he's building a program. I think that's really cool for them.
Now I'm
not going
to look too much into that Arizona Oklahoma game simply because Oklahoma was without their quarterback too. So but
Oklahoma's Oklahoma. It's like Penn State. They should have someone in. Like I remember their 2nd and 3rd string. I mean, they're Oklahoma. It's plug and play. You can't. It's just, and they're leaving the conference.
And remember too. The Arizona quarterback was the backup,
right?
Who took over like when the other guy got hurt, and now the other guy's gone, right. Which is a good thing because the other guy maybe has some serious legal issues.
Hey, I want to ask you guys something, and I know we're talking Big 12 football. Let's talk about this. Goes into the culture, and if I had a magic 8 ball, if I was looking at it, what's going to happen in college football next 3 to 5 years. The coach of the Georgia Bulldogs was interviewed after his blowout victory over Florida State. Did you see that, Tony?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I saw clips.
About
I didn't see
hitting
it.
the nail. Hit the nail on the head as far as calling out college, the NCAA. Hey, what do you want college football to be? Is basically what he asked. And the fact that he thought it was a disgrace for Florida State to put that product on the field for those other guys on Florida State to have to be in that situation, because it was an exodus. They had guys that are going to the NFL not playing, and it's unfortunate that the product isn't as good as what it should be. On paper, that should have been a closer
Florida
game.
State problem.
Yeah, but what's
is a Florida
unfortunate?
State problem.
What's bull about all this, and what's unfortunate is that they opened up the transfer portal before bowl games. What the hell is that all about?
But remember that. Well, actually, you have two big issues here. First one is the reason that happens has to do with the fact that they want these kids to enroll in January so they have them for spring ball. So if you were to say to them, hey, you know what? Let's do the transfer portal in May, and you can do it over the summer, and you can come to fall camp, the coaches say, no, we don't want that. We want them here. So it's like a thing that the coaches have decided, or the schools have decided, that they would rather have that sucky thing so that they have the kids for the next year. And that's a school decision. But I'll tell you the other piece of this that's a huge element, which is entirely the NCAA's fault, is that the answer is collective bargaining. Because until you have collective bargaining, you can't just keep putting in rules that get thrown out. So if you want to keep people from transferring all around, like wild free agency, you want to have a more orderly time period, all this kind of stuff, you have to let them collectively bargain. And that's what the courts keep telling the NCAA, is they keep saying hey, no, you're going to try to restrict people's income. You have two options. You can either knock it off or you can collectively bargain. You can pick. And their NCAA is well, we don't want to do either. And it's well, then we'll just keep smacking you around in court every day. And that's what's happening.
I don't see a future where the NCAA stays relevant or alive. I mean,
they've got to collectively bargain. They've got to put in place.
Order to.
Now, here's the one reason that I do think the NCAA stays, is that the NCAA does a lot of stuff. So if you want to get rid of them, somebody else has to do all that stuff, which means you have to start up a new organization that's going to do all the stuff that they do and somehow do it better. No, because you'd end up having to hire all their people. It's kind of you just you need to. The big issue has to do with football and men's basketball. Everything else, cracked a little bit, but not shat. Not
yeah.
But that other stuff is a lot, and the schools don't really have anybody else that they want to actually do that. And so I think that what you have to do is you have to fix that problem. And that really, and I know this is the unpopular thing to athletic directors, but that problem is all solved by collective bargaining. Whatever you want, if you want to say you sign as a freshman and then you can't play anywhere else for 4 years, you want to hold, because the other thing is schools aren't held accountable to pay the kids that they're being held to. There's a lot of really big mess, I think, which is a huge thing, because I come from two wonderful schools that are absolute control freaks about everything in their school. And so the idea that other people, your collectives, your outsiders, can control the flow of money, that must give them all gray hair, because they must hate that. Both my schools would hate that. And so you think when you give the schools control to be able to do that, I think you set yourself up for more success.
I think that's a great answer. But what about, so right now, from when we talked to Eugene Napoleon, he kind of gave us an insight that, they're giving a little bit of money up front, and then the money's trickled in different ways. There's different ways to sprinkle that money in there. And majority of the time, all that money is not given. It's just, this is how, hey, $400,000, but they might get $175 because of just the way it's structured. Unless they start.
Because the other thing you can do if you do it well is you can have it in escrow. You can have it as a bonus. I mean, that's what investment bank. Again, none of this is new or innovative. It's what investment bankers do. The way they keep investment bankers through the full year is that if you leave before February, you don't get your bonus. And so the transfer portal for investment bankers is in February when they get their bonuses. Essentially, that's when they all move. If you have any friends that are in that industry, they all change jobs between like February 14th and March 1st or whatever, as soon as their bonus checks hit. And so you can really do it. Again, you don't need anything new. You just look at other industries and what they do that works. And there is a lot of solutions that you could do. Because again, I think that control is okay, provided it's not exploitive. That you're giving the kids the chance to share in the revenues they're getting. Because the thing is, they're going to get declared employees. They had I understand that the case in LA was just comical. By the way, if any of you guys don't know, one of the reasons that the case is in LA, they target my beloved Trojans. They target USC a lot because there aren't very many. It's like Notre Dame has church stuff. So the thing about USC is that we have no church stuff and we're a private school. So we don't have any sovereign immunity. We don't have any church, anything we can cling to. We have no excuses. And so they can hit us for like violations of business things. And they hit us and are hitting the NCAA and the conferences so that then when they win, it will apply to everybody. But the reason you often hear them talk about USC is that USC is like really one of the only programs that's like a major power who's completely private and has no state government, no sovereign immunity, and no church to hide behind weird rules for.
One thing that I like to see, and I think that West Virginia is doing a really good job of this, and I'm sure.
Also, I think one of the things that they have to do is that you have to make them feel welcome. Look at Florida State. Florida State just ran off Tate Rademacher. Okay? That kid's a good quarterback. Look at Clemson. They ran off DJ Uiagalelei, who's now off to Florida State. So one of the issues, I think, is when you run these kids off, look at Ohio State. Man, it would have been nice if Ohio State had a quarterback. Oh, wait,
they do. It's like a turnstile in Ohio State.
What did you say? Sorry?
It's like a turnstile at Ohio State. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but that problem is of their own making. The thing with Florida State, and I like Florida State. I will tell you guys, I was at Michigan as like a 10-year-old, I think. Like one of the first game I ever went to in the Big House was when Bobby Bowden brought his number 1 Florida State to number 4 Michigan and laid a whooping on Desmond Howard. It was like they got hit by a train. And ever since then, I've loved Florida. I like Florida State. So, I'm pro Florida State in this. But like all of Florida State's problems are of its own making. Florida State has no excuse. They weren't a victim of anything. It is all their own problem in roster management, their own problem in player motivation. Also, I saw them against BC. They weren't that good. So, these problems are sometimes of the school's makings, and they want to blame the system. Georgia did just fine.
Yep.
I want to remind everybody that coming up right after this show at the top of the hour, Michigan football, as Voice of College Football, will be going live with their Michigan show. Should be a great show tonight. I know John DiAdamo hosted it last night. He's not feeling well tonight, so I think Mark's hosting it. Get well, John. I see you down there in the chat. Appreciate you being here.
You're well done.
Yeah. And congratulations to Michigan and Washington, Sergeant Pickles. Not discounting you guys. I'm looking forward to that game. All right, so one more time, let's talk about some Big 12 stuff here for a second. Next year, let's fast forward a little bit. We have a lot of good programs in the Big 12 right now that are returning a lot of really good teams. Really, for the most part, West Virginia is coming back with their offense pretty much intact. They're not losing anybody but the center. So West Virginia's offense is going to be just as good next year or better next year than it was this year. Defense is still looking pretty good. We're going to lose a couple of players off the line, but we've got some strong backups. Same way if you look out at schools like that, especially schools that are coming in, Utah, Arizona, these are returning really good teams. You look at Oklahoma State, they're going to return a pretty good team. TCU is going to return a team that's going to have some experience under its belt now, so watch out for them. Baylor Baylor's. Listen. I know you can say what you want to about Baylor. I think Dave Aranda's a great coach.
I think he's a good coach too. I was wrong. I thought they'd be better this year, and I was wrong. But they also, that's a school that's committed to success, and it's a school that's really well run by Lynn Livingstone, Mac Rhodes, their whole team. Like, they're not going to stay down.
Yeah, but I think the next year the Big 12 is going to be extremely competitive. It already is, right? We already know it's probably the not strongest conference, but strongest conference top to bottom, where the bottom teams can beat the top teams just about any week, right? We know that can happen, but maybe that doesn't happen.
You're adding some flavor of Pac-12. So let me tell you, the bottom teams will start to beat the top teams every week.
Yeah.
You're adding the desert.
Right.
That's why the Big 12, I think it's easier to make a run into the national championship, because you have, I say this on every show, you have, like A+ programs, and then you have C- and D programs as far as football is concerned. That's my opinion. Where, the SEC, it's all A, B, and maybe one C-. It's just, I don't know. I think you're right, Joey. The Big 12 from top to bottom is a bunch of B's and C's, and they're going to knock the dog crap out of each other.
Well, but here's the one really good thing I think about this structure. I don't know if you guys saw, they did a mock-up of, what would next year's playoff look like with this year's teams, and Arizona as the Big 12 champion, theoretically. So, I mean, one of the things that I think gives you guys a little bit more of a cool opportunity now is that, somebody else could win the conference. It's not always going to be Oklahoma. Somebody else can come in there. West Virginia can come in and win. TCU can win again. Texas. I love Joey McGuire. Like, I am wholly on the Joey McGuire fan train. So a team like that can go in and you win the conference. You can get that fourth bye bid, and make it into the playoffs.
What teams right now, let's just count off, that have a chance of getting into the playoffs from the Big 12 next year? I'll give you my 5.
Okay.
I'm thinking, first off, if they play anything like they did last year, Kansas has a chance. They're decent. They're really well coached. Kansas State's well coached. They have just as good a shot as anybody else. TCU and West Virginia, maybe I could see that. Arizona is up there, and maybe Utah. Am I missing anybody? Oklahoma State. Texas Tech is returning their quarterback. Yeah, Texas Tech. So there's what, six teams?
So I've got Utah, Arizona, West Virginia. This is my list. Utah, my 5. Utah, Arizona, West Virginia, Texas Tech, TCU.
Yeah.
Any of them could. I mean, Oklahoma State. Yeah. I don't know what's going on there. They've had some wackiness, but they won.
Yeah, they're constant. So 6 teams. Is that 6 teams?
If Oklahoma State's not having some drama, it's not a football season.
Right.
Yeah, and that's 6 teams, but we've left out some teams too, like UCF coming back may be able to do something next year since they've had their field. I'm like you, Tony. I don't think they will, but I figure they're going to finish up there somewhere in the middle of the conference better than they did this year.
If you want to, if the Big 12 will add a category, add a new sport called Twitter grandiosity. I mean, UCF, Brigham Young, Cincinnati, they will duke it out.
Now, a team that I think
Texas Tech will win in the end, but they'll duke it out in the Final Four.
A team that'll be better next year. They won't be.
I believe in you, Texas Tech Twitter.
Houston finally has a coach. Who's the coach?
Willie Fritz from Tulane.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good pick. He's
a good hire.
I think he's lost 3 games in 2 years, or 3. He's beginning of the season. I picked 10. Like I said, I picked 10 games, and I just mentioned Tulane the first 2 weeks just because I wanted to see how this year was going to pan out, because they're well coached, and that's not good for West Virginia, I'll tell you.
Well, right.
I will tell you, in 2021, Joey probably remembers this. I did a whole like analysis of like who the Big 12 could add, like looking at when they were looking to add a bunch of teams, and I had Tulane on that list, and everyone laughed at me.
No, I agree.
Everyone laughed. I was like, no. I was like, this could be a good. I mean, they picked the 4 right picks, but like there were a number of them that would have been good. You could add Tulane, add Memphis, add Boise, because we did a whole thing. There's old videos of it, but yeah, I was like, Tulane is a great place. It could be good.
Yeah, I think with Tulane, like Pitt, they don't have their own field, and
no, they
that's
don't
the detriment. I don't think Tulane. They still play.
They built it. It opened like 2 years ago, brand new.
Okay, that's good. That's fantastic. Because last time I was down there, they didn't have it.
Yeah, we had a show. Tony's right. We had a show about that because I made the statement. I would take Tulane or Memphis over Houston simply because we have a footprint in Texas. What do we need more footprint in Texas for? So it wasn't nothing against Houston. It was just that we had a footprint there. Why keep going there?
Well, and there was a time when the conference was looking to expand, and before the Pac-12 decided to eat itself like morons. When we were looking, we were like, okay, who could be really good for them? Who adds a lot? And you look at which is sad now because they're on the outside looking in, but you're looking at the San Diego State, the Boise, the Memphis, the Tulane. I mean, Tulane beat USC last year. Memphis just clocked Iowa State. Boise took UCLA. Boise, who was such a bad team, they fired their coach.
Yeah.
Found a way to win the conference.
Yeah.
So
I want to ask a question about, this team was fun to watch this year. Oregon State.
These are crazy. Like they find a way to win.
What the hell? Why has, they seem to just be out on an island and just like land of misfit toys. The Big 12 didn't pick them up. They just don't have I hear rumors of where they're going, but where are they going to land? What's happening there?
So this part of the problem is, and this is something that you guys in West Virginia, you have a little bit of perspective on with the Big 12.
Yeah.
But the thing is there's the western part of the country is big. Like it's really big.
Right.
And like when you think about like Oregon State and Washington State, they're not close to Utah or BYU. Like they're far the other way. And so you start to have real questions about like, okay, they're really far away. They're good. They're very good. But are they is it like Oregon where it's like, you know what? We're going to suck up all the negatives because it's just so worth, which to be honest, looking at West Virginia, when the Big 12 made the decision to add you guys, you are the Oregon to the Big 12. Who are we going to take that is just so historically great and like this big fan base and big media draw and all this that we're just going to suck up all the pain in the neck for it. It's when the Big 12 added West Virginia.
Yeah.
Because you guys you're the powerhouse. You're the number one brand in the Big 12 now. Or up there, depending on how you want to measure.
As far as merchandise, it probably is.
Draw, all that kind of stuff. So you guys are, when the Big 12 added you guys, it's kind of like the Big 10 adding Oregon. But then you get the question of like, okay, for the Big 12, that's the same issue that I feel like the Big 12 feels about UConn. Like, okay, yeah, they're good. They'll be all right. But that's
That's
far. The kind of same feeling. Their fans love Oregon State and Washington State. People don't understand. They think Oregon State's in the middle of nowhere. Oregon State's like an hour from Portland?
Yeah, yeah.
Oregon's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. It's by Albany. It's like half an hour from Albany, Oregon. I have to go out there for work, and it's just you fly out there and you see beaver and duck stuff, and it's just.
I think they would have been great. Part of the problem too is those states let the flagship schools hose over the other two.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe if you want to really point fingers, you point fingers at the governor of Washington, the governor of Oregon, because they could have stopped all that and did not. And by the way, they had a year to do it. It wasn't like California where they sort of like snuck it in real quick. Like they had a year that they could have locked the two of them together. They looked at passing a bill and they sat there with the governor and the two presidents. And they were like, no, we're all together. We wouldn't go anywhere. And then they did. So, the states rogered those two pretty, and I feel bad for them because they both have great fan bases. They have
Washington State. Yeah. I mean, every time you watch game day, you see a Washington State flag.
Yeah.
Like
and the other thing about Washington State, for you guys who don't know, Washington State is just like Texas Tech. They are in the middle of nowhere. They're essentially in Idaho. They're like, you can hit Idaho with a good golf shot or whatever from Wazoo because it's right on the border. They're right next to the University of Idaho. In fact, it's probably closer than some of the parking for Mountaineer Field to get from Washington State to Idaho. But just like Texas Tech, their fans are all over the state. Their fans are engineers at Boeing in Seattle.
Right.
So they have big viewers. Anyway,
yep.
Go.
I'm sorry to go off a tangent, but when we're talking about schools that could possibly fit, if you bought Washington State and Oregon State, I think they fit the kind of the oddball they have a draw, they have decent programs, they kind of.
You know the other crazy thing?
What's that?
They'd be the two best ag schools in the Big 12.
Yeah.
They're both like phenomenal agriculture schools. They're both like the definition of like your state land grant schools. They're both awesome. Yeah. The thing about the Big 12 is my understanding, and you guys know this better. I don't know the insides of your conference. I'm told the TV networks have kind of told the Big 12 like we're good right now. In terms of additional funding, unless it's Clemson or somebody, we're good on the marginal additions. But if there was room, you can't beat those two. Oh, actually, I do continue to believe, and people get really mad at me for saying this, that Memphis is a perfect fit for the Big 12. I think it unifies the Big 12. The basketball power, they're built redoing the football state.
Yeah.
It's right in the middle.
They're by now. If you're playing like a college football tycoon,
exactly.
That's a program I would buy now because they're putting in a new program, a new facility. They have funding, they have donors, they have a huge alumni base, and they're in an area where people love football. So.
It is. But the other thing with Memphis too, quite honestly, they probably would have made the Big 12 in 2021, but they didn't have a president at the time, and because they didn't have a president, they've been trying to get commitments to renovate the stadium, but they didn't have a president, so the city wasn't. So that stuff was not in place to suck. Yeah, it's sucky timing. If the Big 12 was doing right now what it was doing in 2021. They probably take Memphis instead of Central Florida or Brigham Young or one of those.
One thing I want to go over before we get out of here, because we got about 15 minutes left. I don't want to run over the Michigan show since Michigan's going to be going to the national championship. Big show this week. So I don't want to run into that. One thing I do want to know from each one of you, though. 12-team playoffs coming next year. Give me two teams out of the Big 12 you think will make the playoffs. Give me two teams out of the Big 12. And I'll give you my two. I think one of them is Arizona. And I think the other one would either be Utah or Kansas State. And I know one will make a lot of Mountaineer fans mad because Mountaineer fans are saying, hey, West Virginia is going to probably win the Big 12 next year. I don't see that. I see us having a 9 or 10 win season. I just don't see us winning the Big 12, and I don't see us making the playoffs. I do see us finishing the season in the top 25, top 20 maybe. But Shane, give me two teams out of the Big 12 you think next year will have a great shot, the best shot.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you three just because it's just so damn close. Yeah, I'm going to go with both Kansas schools, Kansas State and Kansas, and then Arizona. But hell, it could be West Virginia. Texas Tech could slide in there. They're right on the bubble.
Yeah, there's so many teams close this year, and there's so many great teams returning such talented players from this year that with the experience. Somebody asked me the other day, they said, they said, you got to remember you're playing North Carolina. This is what they told me before we played North Carolina.
Oh, I remember that.
Y'all were going to lose because they've got more talent on their second and third string than you've got at West Virginia in your starters. And I'm sitting there going, are you nuts?
Whoever said that did not watch any North Carolina games.
Right. And then I'm sitting there going, now, wait a minute.
I did. That's
first off, I don't care how many 4 or 5 stars you've got on a team. That ain't what makes you talented. What makes you talented is experience. If you've got experienced 4 and 5 star players on your team, then you might be a good team. Sometimes not even that. If you've got experienced 3-star players, 2-star players, they can beat some of these teams with 4 and 5 stars. So I knew that, that was a stupid statement, because what makes talent is experience. So I look at the experience coming back. West Virginia's got a lot of it. Yes. Texas Tech's got a lot of it. Kansas State, Utah, Arizona all have a lot. It's going to be such a great thing. Tony, give me your things.
All right. So first of all, here's how I think you get 2 in. I think you need Utah as your number. Utah, I think, is going to be really good. I think.
Yeah.
I think you need Utah to steam through and be very highly ranked. And then you need someone to come else in and upset them in the championship. Because I think you're only, if your champion is your best team, I think you only get 1 team in. So I think the way to get 2 teams in is you have one who's like number 8, number 9, or whatever. They get upset in the final and they still somehow get that thing, so that you get there. You can actually get 2 teams in. Because I'll tell you what you saw the other with when Greg Sankey, and I love Greg. I huge respect for Greg Sankey because I think he's awesome. But he went on the offensive to make sure that the SEC didn't lose a team. They're going to do that with every at-large bid. So I think the way that you get 2 teams in, if you're the Big 12, or more teams in if you're the ACC, you need to make sure you got one that's really high up, and then have your conference champion be somebody else. So I would say Utah is, I think, your best bet. Well,
Utah and Arizona,
It could be Arizona. It could be Kansas State. It could be Texas. Who knows what Texas Tech will do? I'll tell you, I don't. And people can hate on me for this. Maybe I'll be wrong, and if so, I'll eat the crow. I don't think Colorado is going to be nearly as good as the media is going to think they are.
No.
No.
I mean,
because Deion will hype them up, of course.
They were 1-8.
I'm going to throw something at you, boys. If West Virginia beats Penn State and Utah runs the table, and then you have the Big 12 championship, that's a very good possibility that you get 2 teams in. But it has to be a Big 12 team that beats an out-of-conference team that, I'm talking, they can't beat Penn State and Penn State goes and lose 5 in a row. That's not going to help the cause at all. But they have to be solid in their conference. They got to have, maybe 3 losses. That's a scenario right there.
And I think Texas Tech plays Washington next year. Am I right in that? So
no, I think they play Washington State, don't they?
Oh, that's right.
Is Washington State.
By the way, I want to give a shout out. If there's any Texas Tech fans in here, Texas Tech and Texas Tech's leadership get a huge salute. I don't know if you guys know, they're the ones who saved the Oregon Civil War game to make it able to happen, because they had a game, I think, at Oregon, and they agreed to go instead to Washington State and postpone their Oregon game for like 9 years or something. Like literally out of the goodness of their heart, so that the Civil War game could continue in the schedule. And again, Kirby Hocutt, I want to give all the salutes to him and Joey McGuire, because they were willing to do that. And I think that saved an important tradition for the sport. So, Wreckham Tech.
Guns up.
Guns up.
Once again, we appreciate everybody being in here with us tonight. We want to invite you, if you're on the Voice of College Football main channel, please sub up the Big 12 channel. If I can have a mod drop a link for the Big 12 channel, I'd appreciate that. Be sure and sub up that Big 12 channel. Shane and I do a show over there every Thursday night called Big 12 Fan Zone, and it's just a fan show. It's not anything that's got any structure to it. We just get in there, we talk, we invite you in to come in there and talk with us, and it's just a fan show. We just
you might find out what Joey's favorite Pop-Tart flavor is, or what your favorite what your favorite away uniform is. Something silly, something that the girlfriends can follow.
It's all about the Pop-Tarts right now.
Yeah.
I promise this week to reveal what my go-to thing is on game day. What I have to do as a tradition in order for West Virginia to win. I promise to tell you that on the Big 12 show this Thursday night at 7:00 on the Big 12 channel, Big 12 Fan Zone.
And then in February, I'm going to make pepperoni rolls, so you don't have to bring your girlfriend chocolate. You can load her up with white starchy carbs and some processed meat in a nice, warm, delicious package.
Pepperoni roll, I like it.
Yeah, baby. We're going to do all kinds of crazy shit on this show.
Yeah, we had over on Golden Blue Dude, I had reached out to a pepperoni roll maker that was one of the originals here in West Virginia.
Yeah.
And asked to sponsor our show. Well, they got my letter. They started watching the show, and they sent him a T-shirt and a big thing of pepperoni rolls. Everybody might remember that Golden Blue Dude sitting there eating pepperoni rolls on the thing.
Yep.
Pepperoni rolls is the staple of West Virginia, and so yeah, we might have to have a pepperoni roll giveaway one night. That'd be some original rolls from West Virginia. Yeah, get some original ones shipped to you. But anyway, one more time, you'll see me and Shane there. Tony, tell everybody where to find you at, because you're everywhere, man.
You can find me on Twitter at TJ Altimore. It's right there on the screen. Or you'll see me we do the USC post game live. We do some stuff. We're gonna have some very special Pac-12 retrospectives here on the Voice College Football channel, where we're gonna look back on the Pac-12 historically in this season and kind of what it meant for the schools and what it meant for the sport and where they go from here.
All right,
because the Pac-12 is no more.
Everyone be sure and go over and sub up that USC channel too. Yeah, because Tim and Tony, and sometimes they have Rick on there. They have a lot of different guys do a great job over there on that channel. Be sure and sub up the Michigan channel at the Voice of College Football. You're going to want to sub up that for the next week
USC
for sure.
Did a very USC thing today, by the way.
What's that?
We just signed an All-American graduate transfer linebacker from Tufts. Like the number one linebacker in all of D3, we just signed. I don't know if you guys know, Tufts is like one of the smartest,
smart guys
schools in the country. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I laughed. I was like, that's such a USC thing. We're like, we just took the All-American wide receiver from Tufts. The business school dean is equally as happy as Lincoln Riley, I'm sure. Very USC thing. I like
it. What we have coming up next year on the Voice of College Football is the Michigan Lime Show. I can't wait to tune into that and hear what everybody has to say. Congratulations once again to Michigan and Washington for making the championship game. Thank you so much, Washington. We love you. Thank you very much. We sent Texas out of here without another championship. Off to the SEC to start losing every week. Bye, Texas.
Horns down. Just kidding, Longhorn. Fight on, everybody.
Yeah. We love Texas in our own way. Once again, everybody stays right here on the Voice of College Football Watch Michigan Lime Show. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Shane, for joining me tonight. Quick show, man. We had a lot to talk about, and it went quick. Yeah,
great to meet you, Shane.
Good meeting you guys. Thanks, Joey. Thanks for having me on. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you. Everyone have a great night, and we will see you next time right here on the Voice of College Football.